couple of weeks ago, Godox reached out to me and asked me if I wanted to test two of their new flashes, the IT30 Pro and the IT32 for testing. And of course, well, given I have the flashes in my hand, I said yes. And full disclosure, I do actually get to keep both of these flashes in exchange for making this video, but Godox has no input on this video in any way, shape or form. Now when it comes to testing flash units or making a video about them, it's kind of boring, to be honest, because all you can really do is just sort of list a few specs and show images. But then I had a much better idea to make this a little more interesting. And that is the question, how would these small flash units work when traveling? And I just happened to be heading to Japan for 4 weeks of travel, photography and cherry blossoms. So I threw the flash in the bag and headed off. So let's introduce our flashes and of course some of their specs. Wouldn't be a flash testing video without that. So this is the IT30 Pro and it is a lovely small flash for sticking on ideally small cameras. It's a reasonably powerful flash for its size with a guide number of 15. Now I actually have the Nikon version here as I only have Nikon cameras. So if they had to send me a Sony version, that would have been a little embarrassing. Now the IT30 Pro has a fixed head with a small inbuilt wide-angle diffuser. The IT32 on the other hand is a kind of mini pro flash in the same form as something like an SP800, but smaller. It has a guide number of 18, making it a little bit more powerful than the IT30, but it also has features like a rotating and moving head, and it has the kind of standard fold-out wide-angle diffuser and a bounce card. Now the real party trick of the IT32 is the small X5 transmitter it comes with and magnetically attaches to. So this lets you pop the flash off the camera and use it as a wireless flash, which is really handy for some situations where you need a small off-camera flash and you don't want to deal with extra remotes and triggers and all kinds of nonsense. You can literally just rip your flash off the top of the camera, point it where you need it, and away you go. The X5 transmitter that actually stays on the camera for this wireless functionality is also the part that talks to the camera. So if you want to use the kind of flash unit with a different camera brand, you can just buy a different X5 and use it with the same unit. So that's actually quite handy if you have multiple cameras from multiple systems. Now of course, both flashes support Nikon's modern ITTL digital system with all of the usual kind of bells and whistles like high-speed sync, etc, major boring stuff. Now both of these flashes have internal USB-C batteries, which in theory could be a problem rather than being able to just swap out AA's in the field. But it does make traveling with the flashes a hell of a lot easier since they can be charged up easily. And let's be honest, these flashes are not really probably meant for studio work. If you're going to be doing like heavy studio stuff, you're going to have, a much more powerful and larger flash, more than likely. You're not going to be relying on something small like this. And when you're traveling, USB-C is a godsend because it means this can just be charged up very easily off a power bank or a power brick or a multi-charger or something. And let's be honest, you're probably not going to get through the 600 flashes that this can do in one day while traveling. But if you do get stuck, the flashes can be recharged pretty quickly. It takes about 1 hour or so to fully recharge the battery. But the higher drain power of a lithium battery does also mean that the flashes can cycle like really fast. At 1/1 power, it can cycle in about 1.5 seconds, which is pretty dang fast, and it's a hell of a lot faster than my SP800. But then again, that is also a much more powerful flash, so it has to charge up with more power, so who knows. But 1.5 seconds for a 1/1 power is still pretty good. Now both of these flashes also use Godox's wireless flash system, so they will work with the wireless triggers and other flashes in that as well and can all be used together. It's actually really easy to get this set up and sync the flashes all together. And both of these flashes can also be used as transmitters or receivers. So for example, I can have the IT32 as like a main flash and take the IT30 Pro and use it as like a side fill flash. Or I could do that with, big stands and umbrellas and everything and have this as like an on camera, a fill. You can really get kind of creative with these small little flashes. As for use of these on like older Nikon film cameras, these flashes are just not compatible with the older TTL system, with the exception of the F6, which is the only Nikon film camera that I'm aware of anyway, that supports the iTTL system. Now you can mount these flashes on the hot shoe of a film camera and it will fire, but the TTL system will get all screwed up and it won't work properly, so you have to use them in manual mode. And as a side note, I'd actually really like to see a transmitter or some kind of adapter that could bridge this gap. You know, if they somehow made a film TTL to iTTL hot shoe adapter, I think that would sell the gangbusters. Both flashes also have 2.5mm sync ports, so you can use these on really old cameras with a sync cable. Now this unfortunately also introduces the horrors of using manual flash and a bunch of mats. But film is able to handle a good bit of overexposure, so if you err on the side of caution and, you know, have the flash a little more powerful than it needs to be, it'll probably work out for the better. Although maybe don't do this for slide film, and for that I'll probably just stick to TTL systems. Now where these little flashes really shine is for things like travel and family events, and that is what I want to focus on. So starting with the IT30 Pro, this is exactly the small flash I've wanted for travel for a long time. Small, compact, and has a decent oomph to it. And I can absolutely see myself putting this flash on the FM3A or the ZR for things like family events. Also, the flash is very similar to Contact's TLA200, a flash I desperately wanted for the G1 when I had that camera, but that thing sells for absolutely stupid money. But now that I have a flash which is very similar, I just need to rebuy a G1. Yeah, I really wish I'd never sold that camera. It's one of my great regrets. For this Japan trip, I decided to use this flash in a really strange way, where I used it for infrared street photography on a full spectrum converted Z6 with the 40mm f2. So in order to make this happen, I 3D printed a holder for a 52mm IR filter that fits over the flash to block all visible light. And this setup let me use flash without the flash blinding people for some night street photography. Now when I actually went out and did this, I found that the direct flash from this, combined with the really harsh high contrast effect of IR, it produced some really striking results in the alleys of Tokyo. Also in this trip, I used this as a fill flash to balance like indoor lighting with outdoor lighting where I wanted to photograph somebody indoors, but I can't show you those pictures because they're of family. But it did work great as a small fill flash. So if you are in the market for a nice small flash for fun travel photos of you and your friends, you know, on your Fuji X100 or another small little camera, I really do think this might be the best flash on the market. Well, not this exact specific one, you know, you need to buy the right version for your camera brand, but I think this is a really good tool to have in your bag traveling. Now when it comes to the IT32, it is an entirely different kettle of fish for travel. I found myself treating this as a mini pro flash with its party trick of separating from its wireless transmitter, and this made it invaluable for doing off-camera flash on the go. And this was very handy for also that really annoying situation where you're using a small flash and you can actually end up with the lens hood casting a shadow. And that is where this flash was just invaluable, so I could just pop this off, kind of hold it near the end of the lens and point it where I wanted it with the wide angle diffuser on, and it worked. Probably the best example I have of using this is this shot of the sky tree through the cherry blossoms, where the blossoms were actually really underexposed relative to the sky tree. So I used the flash as a fill, hand held off to the side, and it worked a treat. I also used the flash for some macro flower photography when I got back to Dublin, and having the off-camera ability was actually amazing for this because it allowed me to take it off the camera and kind of point the flash downwards onto the flower that I was photographing into, or to add it to the side to fill in a little bit of light. And it made things really useful and actually gave me a lot more flexibility compared to a ring flash. Also, this ability got around that really annoying issue of short working distances on a lot of macro lenses, where when you have the flashes on the camera with such a short working distance, the lens itself can actually cast a shadow onto your subject. But that really wasn't an issue here because I was just able to pop the flash off and hold it off to the side. So overall, the IT32 I would have to say is a much more useful as a mini travel pro flash with some off-camera flash capability. Now when it comes to build quality, both flashes have actually held up really well on the trip. They did get a good few marks and dings, but all those are my fault. You know, I tend to be quite hard on gear when I'm traveling, and when I'm packing up these flashes into the bag, you know, when I'm transferring between locations, they do get bumped down the list of priorities when, you know, packing things into the padded areas, and they just tended to kind of get lumped on top of other gear wherever they fit. When it comes to controlling these two flashes, they actually work really well together because they basically have this exact same control system. They've got a few buttons, a touchscreen for setting up all your options, and a lovely little dial on the side that allows you to scroll up and down the flash power as needed. I had absolutely no issues controlling the flash, setting them up, adjusting the power, etc. It worked really, really well. So when it comes to traveling, both flashes absolutely get an A+ for different reasons. So the IT30 Pro is absolutely the best kind of casual flash experience, if that makes any sense. This is for the people who don't really want to think about the flash too much. Just stick it on your camera, set it to TTL mode or manual mode or whatever, and just go to town taking pictures of you and your friends and having a great time creating travel photos and memories. This is the ideal flash for that exact situation. But if you think you're going to find the IT30 a little limiting on your travels, the IT32 solves all of those issues and then some. This thing was hilariously useful while traveling, to the point where it's actually comical. Having the ability to just pop this off and use it as an off-camera flash was crazy useful and actually almost disturbingly useful. You know, just take it off, use it for off camera, use it as a fill, use it to freeze action. You know, it just worked so goddamn well. It's actually crazy. So both of these are absolutely great little flashes, and I'm going to be using these a lot more in future videos, where I'll see you next time. Oh my god. So the lights turned off just as I got to the viewpoint. That was fucking hilarious timing. Guess I have to come back here tomorrow. Oh no, I have to come back and look at all this beauty again.